positivity. Gal, what you saw this afternoon, has your view changed on either side?
Oh, no, look, I probably thought for the whole off-season the Tigers would get the spoon. Then I bought into probably the St George side. The way they played down in Mudgee in the few weeks that happened there, so I went the Dragons, but I still think that the Tigers are probably going to be specials for the spoon. And the Parramatta side, I've got to say, were probably a little bit disappointing. They got the 2 points, which was what they desperately needed. They needed to get the 2 points and start to get in the winning ways, but they weren't great today, I don't think. They had plenty of errors in the first half. They did have a lot of ball on. They had just over sort of 45% of the ball. So had they had a bit more ball, they might have been able to score some points. But I thought Mitchell Moses was pretty good. 3 shots off kicks early, a good pass that set a trap also, so he was okay. But I thought overall the Parramatta side were a little bit disappointing. They were pretty clunky. And in saying that, the Tigers in the first half, they had plenty of ball. The first 10 minutes, they had all the ball on the trial of the Parramatta side, but couldn't score. They couldn't even create an overlap, to be honest. And it wasn't until the second half they started to create overlaps and score some points. They came right back into it. And I've got to say, we're probably not unlucky because the fullback dropped the ball off that dropout. That was a really, really bad error, but I thought he caught that. I thought they were primed and they're coming to get them. I reckon they would have scored.
Moses, brilliant in that first half in particular. Gus, for Tigers fans, is there anything to glean from that in terms of positivity?
Yeah, I see the makings of a really good team there. They've got some really talented young players there. They haven't quite worked out what they're doing yet, and they're not seasoned by any stretch of the imagination, and they're playing under pressure because they're losing every week and they're looking for that first win. The game today was very much like a lot of the Tigers' games this year. They get themselves well behind on the scoreboard, they have a bit of a rally, and then when they get close to winning, they find a way to shoot themselves in the foot and hand the game back to the opposition, and that was pretty much the case today. I thought there were some really good patches of play from individuals in their team. For the Eels, I think their early points came a little bit too easy. I think getting out to that 18-6 lead when it was just 3 little grubber kicks in behind the line, they didn't have to work hard enough for those tries, but when they needed them, they managed to get it out to the try scorer and he put it over in the corner and they got the victory. I thought Parramatta probably did as much as they had to do to win without really stretching themselves too far. And I saw positive signs in the West Tigers.
Guys, I've got a question I want to ask you. And I know they've got a very experienced coach there, the West Tigers. What are you telling these young blokes throughout the week? Because all they're reading is negativity about the club. They've had nothing positive spoken about them for many, many years now, to be honest. And there are a young group of players coming into the competition. All the talk in the papers, on social media, is all negative about them and where they're at. How do you get them up each week? What would you be saying to them?
Yeah, Paul, you've been in football clubs. You know how much of that we ignore, and football clubs do ignore. I mean, it's taught to them. It's in your culture. It's in your mind control, your attitude control. It's in your togetherness and your connectivity with each other and the circle of trust within your group, and you just ignore the noise that goes on around you. Having said that, young people today are enamoured with social media. They do read the criticism. They do read what the fans say, and it can put pressure on them. It's up to the coach to really settle all those voices in their head and make sure that they're listening to positivity and they're listening to the people with them. You know, attitude control, the way you talk to yourself is really important, not what other people say about you, and you've got to be positive in that respect.
You can see there, it's not a pretty run for them coming out of the bye. What do you do with the bye? If you're 0-6, Gus, as the coach, would you be taking them away?
No, they've got some work to do. You know, they've just got some work to do mentally, physically, teamwork-wise, connectivity, defensively. They've got a lot of things to work on. They're years away. When I say they've got the makings of a really good team, they're years away. But this is the start of it. I've been saying it every week. And I can see the beginnings of a really good group there.
The news for the Tigers coming out of that, it sounds like it will be an ACL.
Oh, that's terrible.
A third one for Adam Dewey.
Same knee. And it was kind of suspected that it was never really 100% after the first two. So that's sad. He's just leapt for a ball and he's come down. And that's really the action that, when there's no one around them and they just get that little... So you'll see them in warm-ups and you'll see them at training where they're jumping from one leg to the other and stabilising themselves and stabilising them. People ask what that's all about. It's all about strengthening the muscles and tendons around that. And the story was that he was weak in that knee anyway through his muscles and tendons after 2 ACL operations, and that's sort of landing like that. Hopefully it's not right. Hopefully it's not as bad as they think, but it looked like a bad one.
A third one, Gal? How does that work in terms of the rest of your career?
I don't know. Thankfully, I never did an ACL, thankfully. I never had to deal with one, but you can imagine your third ACL on the same leg. You'd probably have to start questioning where your career is at. Particularly, I don't know what sort of surgery they do. I don't know whether they drill through the bones, but I mean, have another hole put through his bones again for a third time. I mean, Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a doctor, obviously, but I'm not sure what the outcome will be. But yeah, I think questions will be raised going forward.
Thankfully for Adam Doueihi, he signed a 1-year extension over the summer as well. He's got that security at least with the club. He'll come back at some point next year, but 3, as I said, to the same knee, it's not good. And now the question is, what do they do? They've chopped and changed with Adam Doueihi over the first 6 weeks of the season. Brandon Wakem's had a chance. He went back to reserve grade today. Do you have Dane Laurie at 6? These questions again coming up for the Tigers this week about what they do going forward with their halves.
Well, I think today was in the first 5 rounds of the competition, they've had a different spine virtually every week. So they haven't had any consistency in their spine, which, as we know, is so important in the competition and for your team. And they haven't had the same half hooker and fullback for the first 5 rounds.